Hi, this is Ren.
And this is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film. Nerd Edition.
Nerd Edition, really?
Yeah, get out your pocket protectors and throw on your nerd glasses, because today we're talking about Firefly.
Let the record show that I obnoxiously rolled my eyes at that comment. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about Firefly, which does have a cult status for being nerdy, and it is, but pocket protectors, really.
It's a stereotypical look of an nerd.
Yeah, like 30 years ago.
Yeah, that is true. Modern day nerds look a lot better than Revenge of the Nerds look.
Yeah, or the dude from Robot Chicken with the glasses.
Okay.
And the buck teeth.
Yeah.
Alright, so...
But you do see those type of people at nerd conventions, too. You can't lie. You do see those kind of people there.
Entirely separate from that comment. So my experience with Firefly was I didn't start at the beginning, which was good. The first episode of Firefly I ever saw was Janestown, and it entirely just hooked me right away. I was about 11, and over the course of time since then, I've seen all of the episodes except for the first one, at minimum, at least 8 or 9 times. A lot of episodes I've seen a lot more than that, and I can directly quote most of the show. The opening episode I've only seen twice. That's it. But I love this show, and I just rewatch like crazy. And the movie I've seen 3 times, and that's it.
Okay.
But I haven't read the comics yet, just because I don't own them, and I need to buy them. They're just a little pricey, just because of their... they're not distributed as much, so they're a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, but if you're, like, really looking for comics of Firefly, you can go on Amazon and check them out.
Yeah, or you can buy them at most conventions. No matter what kind of convention it is, they should have it.
Conventions, or you can always go to a comic book store and request specific comics. That is a practice that some people don't know about, so
yeah,
might as well support that, especially since comic books are locally owned for the most part, which I support locally owned businesses. So, on to the show. My experience with Firefly is I watched the movie because I worked.
The entire community of Firefly fans screams in your face, "No!"
Well, I'm mad myself because I worked at a video rental store, and people were recommending me check out the movie Serenity, and I was like, "Don't I need to watch the show Firefly first?" And they were like, "No, you'll get it."
Who told you that? I want names and addresses. That's not...
I don't remember the name. But,
no, not really, but that's not correct, sir. That is an untruth.
So I watched the movie, and it was okay, and then I kind of just went about my life afterwards.
Well, you saw the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, and then a friend of mine said, "No, you gotta check out Firefly." So I was like, okay, I will watch Firefly. I will give it a chance. I'm actually interested in watching it. Got through the first episode. Now, the first episode does not sell the show in really any way. And one thing I have noticed based on the body of work that I've seen of Joss Whedon is he doesn't know how to start the story. He knows how to pick up after the story has gotten moving, but I will argue that he needs somebody to write an introduction to his story, because it seems that he doesn't know how to do it correctly.
Well, the biggest problem I have with the opening episode is that it's 2 hours.
It's 2 hours. There's not a lot going on. There's, like, this war stuff, but, it's back in the time where you don't see the budget for it.
Well, it's a pilot.
Yeah.
No, that's my issue. Pilots, I think, normally should not be extra long, because a pilot is supposed to sell you on a concept, but traditionally pilots are not what the rest of the show is. So a lot of times characters or plot elements get reworked, the production value goes up, but you make an initial pilot just to test it and see if it's worth it for them to give you all the money to make your show happen.
So just out of curiosity, so they didn't tweak anything after the pilot was made? Because some shows do that.
They tweaked the entire tone of the show. Like, the tone of the show is not what it was in the first episode.
But what I'm asking is, sometimes a pilot is different than the first episode. Because I watched
the first
True
episode...
Blood.
No, the first episode is the pilot.
Yeah.
The 2-hour episode is the pilot.
I watched True Blood. I watched the pilot of True Blood, which actually had a completely different character for Tara. Mm-hmm. Completely different actress. And it had somewhat of a different feel. And we could talk about where that show wound up and like how it got gradually worse and worse. But, you know, this is not a podcast about True Blood, so this is probably the last time we'll talk about it in this episode.
Yeah, Serenity is the series pilot.
Okay.
However, Fox executives were not satisfied with this pilot, so instead, The Train Job was created as a second pilot, which was a much better episode and more in the feel of the show.
Yeah.
That was a much better pilot.
When I saw...
So that was the second pilot, and when they aired it, that was the first episode.
Yeah, I actually am going to agree with Fox for that decision, even though I can disagree with some of the decisions they made in the future about Firefly, which, you know, unfortunately, since I did not watch the show when it came out, I don't know.
No, that's fortunate, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I understand if you liked it since before it came out, because there was a lot of hype for it, and contrary to popular belief, it was fairly popular when it came out.
Yeah.
But the way that they aired it was so frustrating because they didn't air... There were at least 3 episodes they didn't air, period. They aired episodes out of order, and they aired episodes at different time slots without announcing it. So if you were trying to follow the show, there was no way to do that. And because the views went down, because nobody could find it, that's why it got cut.
Yeah, and
even
Fox
though there
is
was
getting,
a market and an audience.
Fox is getting better with this because
they have such a bad reputation.
They have a bad reputation that they're really trying to correct now.
Yeah.
But they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Train Job, I think, definitely works as a much better pilot, just because they fixed the tonal issues, and I think that's the big problem with Serenity, and why it feels so long for being 2 hours, is it's...
Wasn't it longer than 2 hours?
No, I'm pretty sure it was just 2 hours, but...
It felt long.
It did feel long. Like, that's why I've only seen it a couple times, was because it felt really long.
Yeah. So, I watched the first episode, was not sold on the show, and my friend told me to just hold in, watch one more episode, and I was like, dude, seriously? But I was like, okay, I'll give the show one more episode. And fortunately, the episode The Train Job did sell me more into the show.
Yeah.
And the first episode, I will say, I was kind of groaning about everything just because, you know, it was over long and such and such. But I was really fond of the character Jane.
Yeah.
And Jane was entertaining enough for me to not want to just beat the shit out of my friend for making me watch those 2 hours.
Jane was great, but then I honey badgered you into actually watching it because, dude, it's only 14 episodes and you got through the longest one.
Yeah. And, you know, as the show progresses, it does get better.
Which is also another Joss Whedonism. Buffy is very much the same way, where throughout the whole 7 years, it's just constantly evolving in terms of character, in terms of sort of their lives. Everything's always evolving as they grow up and have to be more responsible, but also in terms of production design, tone, all that stuff. So Buffy Season 1 is nothing like Buffy Season 7, which is nothing like Buffy Season 3. It's just a continuously upward going arc, which is good. And Firefly was like that too, for as short as it was. And that's one of the biggest problems with it, but is that it was cut short.
Yeah, and also, I have to bring this up now, before I get hate later. I am judging the show based on what I got, not what the show could have been. Yeah. And a lot of fans I've seen use the standpoint of, oh, I love Firefly, blah, 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 and it's really just what they thought the show could have been. But guess what? We didn't get that show, and therefore you can't judge a show based on an assumption of what it could be.
And today we're only talking about the TV show and the movie, but that is where the movie comes in, because the movie really was made to show the full potential, which is why I think it all revolves around River's character, is because she had like this whole other thing that was gonna happen, so they sort of fit her whole storyline in there. But they also fixed a lot of production issues and design issues that they couldn't do in the TV series. Right,
and going on with the design issues, one of the issues that I have with the show was, I get it, it's a space western. They kind of beat you over the head with that concept, and can you go on IMDb and check out Cowboy Bebop, because I do believe that show came out before Firefly.
1998.
Okay, so there was a show called Cowboy Bebop, which was a space western style show. So this is not a new concept. Also, of course, Star Wars is very much a space western, but it owes a lot to, Kurosawa films and other samurai films of the time, as well as, Flash Gordon and all this kind of stuff, which Firefly essentially is a riff on Star Wars, because it's an entire show around most people's favorite character in Star Wars, which is Han Solo. And the character of Mao is a Han Solo archetype. I mean, all you gotta do is look at his outfit, and it's very Han Solo-esque.
Yeah, whenever you see the Alliance, it is supposed to be very similar, I think, to the
Empire?
Yes, the Empire. Yeah. But in sort of a more American government kind of way.
Yeah. One of the things that I think's weird about the Alliance is, and with the show in total, was the Chinese took over, apparently, but yet they couldn't get Chinese actors.
Yeah, that was a major problem with the show. Is it was racially diverse in terms of its main cast, but
if
there
you're gonna
were
go with
no Chinese people ever.
If you're going to go with Chinese, give one actor. You can hire... There are plenty of good Chinese American actors that can speak both Mandarin or... I forget what the other dialect is.
Well, here's the thing. You had multiple African American characters. You had, obviously, white people.
Yeah.
You have German people.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of different ethnicities, and I'm gonna sound super stupid. I'm not quite sure what an ethnicity Inara is, which is not really American white type of person.
I think she's mixed.
Yeah, I think she seems mixed too, but I just don't know, so I don't want to say. But my point is that even beyond the main cast, you see people with different ethnicities. You see Irish, you see German, but you don't see, not just Chinese, you don't see any Asian people in the show.
Which is weird, because there will be moments in the show where they will speak with the Chinese dialect poorly, might I add.
They were speaking Chinese.
They needed a linguist.
Yeah, they needed to hire someone to teach them how to speak Chinese.
Yes, because I can't imagine somebody of Chinese descent who actually, speaks Chinese as their native tongue, enjoying the show. Well, they might be able to enjoy the show, but anytime the characters would break off into Chinese, it would be worse than their reaction to Chow Yun-fat in Crouching Tiger, which I heard, because he didn't speak a certain dialect, people had problems with it, but, it sounded bad to us.
Yeah,
which...
I know some Japanese, I know some Korean, I know limited Chinese, and I don't know many dialects.
Yeah.
I really don't know a lot, but I know enough to know the sounds, if that makes sense. And I know there's a lot of enunciation.
Right.
They do it in like a southern drawl, which I get, and I can understand if you sort of did that interpretation, but it's so slurred that it, even if they might be saying the right syllables, it comes off really wrong. And
going off another sci-fi franchise, well, it's not a franchise.
Okay, speaking of franchise, I want to go back to what you were saying about the space western.
Mm-hmm.
It's true, there were space westerns before Firefly. However, almost exclusively they were in anime. And by 2003, anime, like the whole anime thing was kind of just getting started in America. So yes, it is a little over the top with the genre, but it was brand new to a lot of people. They
and Joss Whedon being a nerd.
Yeah, he probably was inspired by, Trigun, Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop, those kinds of shows, because those were around, but those weren't mainstream yet, like they are today. So now I can think of it, but really, if you look beyond Japan, there wasn't a lot in terms of space western. But
at the same time, the subtlety, like there is no subtlety with the concept of space western. No, but dude, the early
2000s were not a time for subtlety. There was not subtlety going on in 2003 in television. Yeah. Don't even try to talk to me about that, because you do have to put it, if you're not talking about today, you have to put it into a historical context.
One of the unfortunate effects of the show was they didn't have the production to actually incorporate technology within these environments. So oftentimes it felt like they just entered a time machine and went back in time to like the early, the late 1800s, mid 1800s.
Yeah, like they tried to do a sort of a Western steampunk sort of thing.
But the steampunk didn't really hold up as much as it could have.
It did, considering where they were. I think that's why they spent the whole first season in the outskirts. They only stopped in really metropolitan areas only a couple times. And it's because they didn't really have the budget or the capabilities to show how advanced it was. So they tried to show the more rural areas.
You could have had some glowing lights and all this kind of stuff.
What about what about Heart of Gold, when the dude who's got the prostitute pregnant, he's in like this little podunk town where he steals people's taxes and stuff. He buys a ray gun. He's got all this nice stuff in the middle of nowhere. Like, there could be more of that, but they do sort of hint at it. It's just, like I said, production issues.
Right. And money. And in the movie,
the first half of a first season.
In the movie, there is what I would have expected to see with that kind of blend of both, which just works better. I mean, you go back to Star Wars, you have Tatooine, which is run down as hell. Mm-hmm.
Which I think was a lot of the inspiration.
Right. It's run down as hell, but there's still like technology, there are little droids and all that kind of stuff, and that doesn't seem too far-fetched, for them to, just do something simple like that. So I'm gonna throw a little bit of fault to the production value on that, but since it only got one season, I can't
Not even, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, since it didn't even get a full season, I can't fault the show completely, because I don't know exactly how much of their actual vision was able to be put onto the show. But I still am judging it based on what I've seen.
Yeah, and going back to the 2003 issue, there was a lot of, like, really over-the-top stuff. Like, they were kind of trying to push in new directions. So, like, the Ren and Stimpy Adult Party cartoon series came out that year. Like, that kind of stuff. And most things were kind of over-the-top or ridiculous. But one thing that is kind of going to make me eat my words a little bit is that's when Carnival first came out.
Yeah, well, HBO set a different standard.
Well, Nip Tuck came out that year too. Like, ugh.
Well, here's the thing: cable dramas set a new standard for TV, and the only time TV was able to compete with that was the TV show Lost.
Yeah.
Say what you will about Lost. Lost, to my understanding, is the only TV show, network TV show, that was able to compete with cable.
Yeah. And 2003 was also when anime was kind of first starting to be available here more mainstreamly. So, like, Fullmetal Alchemist had just come out with an English dub. What's this other show? Iki Tosen kind of just came out. So it was still a new thing. Ish. Like, that was kind of where it was starting. JoJo... Oh, never mind. That's something else. But, like, right what came out in 2003 that was really popular was, like, 2.5 Men, and NCIS, One Tree Hill, Arrested Development, The OC, like, Nip Tuck, Venture Brothers, you know, Teen Titans. I'm not saying any of these are bad. I'm just saying that was kind of the over-the-top, not subtle style of television.
Right.
So they were really banking on the originality of it, which I know you're saying it's derivative of anime, and it is. But for people who've never seen it, you kind of have to push it over the top to really get your concept across.
Right.
To stand out.
Well, I think...
If Firefly was just coming out today, it would be entirely different.
Well, kind of my argument, though, is the Western crowd and the sci-fi crowd are completely different crowds. And I personally think that they could have done a better job of meshing the two instead of, like, really going hardcore with the Western.
With some Western stuff.
Well, no, I would say going Western with a hint of sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, it's just... It's difficult to say because it is cut short. We just don't know.
Yeah. And, you know, And
you're right, in the movie, when they did kind of try to prove what their entire vision was, there was a lot more sci-fi elements. But the movie was way more sci-fi oriented than Western oriented.
Right.
Way more.
And it is possible that in the future they might try to reboot the series.
No, I don't want them to. I'm severely against the idea. But also, I kind of think it's done. I think
the fan base is a little too strong for that, though.
No, I think it's kind of done because he's decided he's going to wrap up everything unfinished with the comics.
Okay.
I know a lot of things that I had issues with had been at least resolved.
Yeah. If
not, I don't know to what degree, but I know they were resolved with the comics, and that is his MO. He does that with Buffy as well.
Yeah.
Season 7, the series was complete. That was the full season. But then he did Season 8 in comics, just because the fan base was really strong.
Season 8 and 9, I do believe.
Yeah, Season 8 and 9, like, he continued it with comics.
Yeah.
And there were even comics that took place earlier than the TV series or throughout the TV series.
Yeah.
But that's his avenue rather than television. And I really don't think Firefly is ever coming back to TV. And I don't want it to. I'm not interested, honestly. Because, like I said, they would have to entirely change the tone and the settings and everything. Like, really, really make it a different entity. And also, you can't get the original cast, because half of them died and in the show, not in real life. Half of them died, and the other half of them are either too busy or are way too old now. Well, and are way too old now. Like, you'd have to do a time skip again, and that would really suck. And now you have to deal with the fact that they're older, and it's weird. I'm not against, like, old people, but I'm just saying, like, it's really weird when you have that big of a time gap.
I wouldn't be surprised if, I know you're going to hate me saying this, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years from now, they reboot the entire show with different actors playing the parts and with cameos.
No!
With cameos from the real actors.
Nope. La 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 la. Nope. Big tall glass and nope for me. Nope.
I'll be surprised if it doesn't happen.
No, I don't want it to happen. Don't say that. I want it to happen. Okay, so how do you feel about it in a more, how should we say? I don't want to say emotional way, but aesthetically. Now that you've seen the whole show.
Aesthetically, a lot of it I have to judge based on the time that it was released, because...
No, I'm saying taking away everything we've just discussed of production issues, time cuts, and the 2003 era. Put all that aside, just watching it today, how do you feel about it?
I think it's okay. I think that there's some cute moments. I think that there's some funny moments. I also found myself moved at other moments. But I don't think it's everything it's been cracked up to be by the fan base. The fan base has kind of ruined it for me because they exalt this thing as if it were something better. And based on what I've seen, which I have seen the entire show and the movie, so I do believe I can judge it as a whole now, except I haven't read the comics, but I do think I have enough to judge it as a whole, and I'm thankful that it exists because a lot of things that I like are inspired by it, but I think do a much better job. Like, I'll go to Battlestar Galactica. Mm-hmm. Battlestar Galactica wouldn't exist without Firefly, but at the same... I'm talking about the 2004 remake. But at the same time, Battlestar Galactica is a much smarter show. You know, and Firefly is a little kitsch. It's a little cheesy. It does play on this this concept of, oh, let's chuckle at this, let's chuckle at that. Oftentimes I think the show doesn't know when to be serious, when to be funny, and it comes off as awkward at times too. Okay,
well, for one, I tend to think it's a little unfair to base something on a fan base, because not everybody in a fan base feels a particular way or acts a particular way, for one thing, but also for another thing, whoever likes it or how they react is not a part of the original material. That's a community. That's not an entity, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I love this show, obviously, because it has some nostalgia for me. I do see its issues. It's not the best show on television.
No.
I've heard people who are not even as big of fans of it as I am. I don't mean to say that in a mean way, but seriously. Who are like, oh, this is the best thing that's ever been on television ever. No, it's not. That is not not today. Not today post True Detective. No.
Or Breaking Bad.
Or Game of Thrones, but for me it's True Detective. But you know, my point, or even Hannibal if you're talking about network television. If you only want to talk about network television,
no.
Hannibal's a much better show than Firefly. But Firefly has a special place in my heart over Hannibal. Yeah. But it's because I always prefer characters to plot. And not that I'm dissing the plot, but just in general, characters will drive something home for me. And for the most part, like out of the 9 cast members, 7 of them I hold very near and dear to my heart, and I love them as if they were real people. And I think they're fantastic and beautifully, like, really well designed characters, very outstanding. They're not like other characters that I know in like other movies and TV shows. And I really enjoyed that. And the actors all had such a personal connection that a lot of those moments that are really funny or really touching come from a really genuine place that really comes through in the show.
Right.
And I entirely disagree with you about it coming off as awkward. I think it does know when to be funny and when to be serious. They were kind of trying to, I can tell from the first 14 episodes, and because of the way that the pilot didn't work out, that they tried to start off really lighthearted and progressively become more and more serious, and we didn't really get to see the culmination of the darker elements coming through in the show.
Kind of, yeah, and
like
I
with
hear
the Reavers and with Leon, or no, not Leon, Early.
Right. And to me, what really stands for great television is when you have these moments where you're like, fuck yeah, and you're like all excited about characters, and then you have moments in a show where your jaw drops and you're screaming at the television. And this show,
I've done that with Game of Thrones so many times. Just like, what?
Yeah, but this show wasn't given the time to have those moments.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, I do have to base my judgment on the fact that I did not get that.
Yes, and actually, I do see what you're saying about the awkwardness. I did realize that watching it through and knowing it as well as I do this time, that the editing was very well edited for visuals and for continuity and for to really have good visual timing, but it was not edited well to convey good tone and comedic timing with the speaking.
Right.
The editing did kind of mess up a lot of moments, like a lot of pacing issues and a lot of weird timing issues in terms of characters talking rather than what looks right.
All right, and I know that this is probably a fan favorite character, but I do have to say this.
What are you going to say?
There's one character that annoyed me to high hell.
Oh, yeah.
And that was River.
And I guarantee you she annoyed me a lot more than she annoyed you. I guarantee it.
Okay.
Yeah, River and
coming from a neuroscience standpoint, even though I don't know a lot about neuroscience, I will tell you that stripping somebody of their amygdala would not have that effect.
I told you that.
Yeah.
I told you that.
But I actually did my research on it. Stripping somebody of their amygdala would not have that effect, and
no, that was so stupid.
It would have worked better if it was an implant.
Yeah.
We could forgive the show if they didn't try to claim something that is tangible to our understanding of neuroscience today versus, hey, we don't know how to explain this. It's some sciencey thing that we implanted in her brain that makes more sense and disrupted her amygdala. That I could forgive it on that. But stripping somebody of their amygdala would not have that effect.
Yeah, and shoot, I'm trying to look something up.
Plus her character's reactions to things seemed to only serve the plot, because there were times where she was completely in tune and times where she completely wasn't, and you needed in the show, for me to forgive it more, she would have had to mess up at points where you would think that she'd get in tune.
Well, yeah, there were a lot of issues with her character, and stripping someone of their amygdala does not make them psychic.
Right.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But something else that I think would have worked really well to mess her up is if they did a brainwashing thing, and that's sort of what they tried to retroactively fix in the film, is that they definitely hinted that she was brainwashed into doing stuff, not the stripping of the amygdala thing, because they did kind of change some of that storyline that they established in the movie. But there's
the movie does a much better job with the character than the show ever did.
Yeah, and I'm currently trying to look it up, and I'll plug it when I see it. But there was an episode.
If she were silent, if she didn't say anything within the
it's
show,
so
and
much
she
better.
just reacted to things, it would have worked a lot better in the show, because that way we wouldn't have this reference to go by when she's completely in tune at one moment, and then the next moment she's completely out of it. If she were silent throughout the entire show, we wouldn't know what was going on in her head. We could get the visuals, we could get all that stuff, and I would have less to nitpick.
Yeah, and a big part of what made her really obnoxious was the fact, there were a lot of scenes where you could tell that she knew what was happening and she was aware and she couldn't communicate it. And that was frustrating at times, but then there were other times where it's just like, she was either rambling in gibberish, or she did something really batshit stupid, like take a knife and cut Jane right down the middle of his chest for no reason, after peeling the labels off of all the tin cans. Like, what prompted her to do that? And I get that was part of the point.
Or tear up Preacher Man's Bible.
No, that actually made sense. I understood that. I understood everything was preacher and the points they were trying to say about religion. And I get part of it was that they were really trying to make her unpredictable. I get that.
It felt like they were trying to make her autistic, but without actually making her autistic. No, in fact, her character would make more sense if she was autistic.
No, yeah, don't put it like that. That's just weird.
Why not?
It's just a little weird to say something like that. It's a little weird. But,
okay.
She really did just sort of do whatever the plot allowed, and that's why, that's what made her frustrating when she couldn't communicate, was the only reason why she couldn't just flat out say what was happening was because of plot convenience. Yep. And it was getting more interesting when you could see into her head by the last episode of the show that we saw. So we saw everything that made her really obnoxious, and we were just starting to get into what salvaged her character, and that's really why the entire movie is about her. And I get that, because she makes a lot more sense in the movie.
It would have made more sense if they did like a brain overload, where she was at a higher level but didn't know how to translate it to everybody else. Like, I could have forgiven it for that too, because, like, imagine if you were like an IQ level higher than, I don't know, what's the highest IQ?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I really don't know.
Well, imagine you're at a really high IQ level, Einstein or higher, but you don't know how to connect that. And we have this a lot with very intelligent people, where they understand the world in a way that none of us can understand, but actually translating that. I mean, not everybody can be Stephen Hawking. Have a great mind and actually dumb it down to stuff like popcorn.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, thank you, Stephen Hawking. You've dumbed down some of the most complex theories to something that, a grammar school kid can understand, which that to me is absolute genius.
Yeah. I got really fed up with River. I also got really fed up with Simon. Mostly because he's not good enough for Kaylee.
Well,
he's not good enough for Kaylee.
And that was, those characters were part of the common late 90s, early 2000s trope of will they, won't they?
Well, not just will they, won't they, but with Simon and River, it was definitely over the top melodramatic.
What, Simon and Kaylee?
No, Simon and River. They're sci-fi brain injury. I need to take care of my sick sister storyline.
Yeah.
Was very, very of that era as well. Just way too over the top melodramatic. And I like melodrama especially in anime, but like they took it way too far to be believable or enjoyable.
A better will they won't they drama that they actually had in Firefly was Mal and
Inara was so much better. And one will they won't they is
I like
enough.
their play.
You only need one.
I like their play with their play on each other, and when watching the show initially, I was confused because I thought Inara was just a straight up. I thought she was like a high class prostitute.
Even though I repeatedly told you.
Well, I thought she was like I don't think you've seen this movie, but I thought she was like Sasha Grey in the Girlfriend Experience.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but I did, like I had tried to explain, and I'll explain it again, that she's actually much closer to a geisha.
Yeah.
But with way more sex thrown in there than a geisha, because geishas don't traditionally do that. But I'm saying she's much closer to that, where she's providing a whole experience that may or may not be sexual, but in general is very sexual. But she has all the power. She chooses her clients. She has all the protection she needs. Nobody's going to be able to take advantage of her or mistreat her. That's just not going to happen. She has the power and the control.
And she has an entire crew as protection.
She has a crew as protection, but she doesn't need them. She's never needed them except for in the movie when she got kidnapped, which was stupid. But except for that, she never needed their help. She could do her own stuff because she was a capable woman with high ranks in society. She knew people. But mostly it's about the fact that, I mean, she did have to go to training, But she does provide a whole thing that's all about being, like, just really centering on another person. That's mostly what it's about.
Right.
It's a much more artistic thing than just putting out.
And we saw in, I forget what episode it was, where there was...
Heart of Gold.
Heart of Gold, there was a confusion about that. Right?
No, maybe you're thinking of a different episode.
I'm thinking about the episode where the father was trying to get his son laid.
Oh, that episode, yeah. I want to say that was Jamestown. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because the dad was the magistrate in that town. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jamestown, I will say, is my favorite episode of Firefly.
Oh, definitely. I'm glad you say that, because I have a lot of favorites, but Jamestown is the number one best. Yes.
Well, Jane, when I was on the fence about the show, Jane was the one character that I could kind of follow and not be annoyed by the entire show. I mean, I thought Kaylee was hot, but
she's a fantastic character. Don't speak bad about Kaylee. I will kick your ass. Kaylee is freaking awesome. I love her because she's sweet, and occasionally she's a little naive, but she's not stupid, and she's really not that naive either. Yeah. She knows how the world works. She knows. She still has a positive outlook, though, and I think that's really cute.
Yeah.
And yeah, she is hot. She said that this is the only role that they ever told her to put on weight for, because they weren't trying to make her chubby, but they wanted to make her look like a normal girl, and not like super skinny. Because apparently she had been asked most of the time to lose weight. And I think it's cool that they did specifically just like, we just want you to have a normal body type.
Yeah, and I think
hot. She looks good.
Yeah, I think it works for that.
Yeah.
And even though Inara was really hot, I personally had an attraction to Kaylee more than any other character.
In terms of just like eye candy, they did have a pretty good spectrum, except for River. If you think River's hot, that's a little disturbing to me because she's so much like a little kid. Not if you think Summer Glau's hot. I get the difference. Yeah. If you want to tell me you think Cameron from the Sarah Connor Chronicles is hot, that's totally different.
Yeah,
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, if you think the actress is attractive but don't want to feel weird, just watch the Sarah Connor Chronicles and you can feel okay. Granted, she plays a robot in that one, android. Yeah, she plays a Terminator in that, but
in Firefly, she's too mentally incapable to be attractive. Like, that's just disturbing. But you do have Inara, and she is smoking hot. And she's beautiful and very feminine, and she has, like, a kind of wonderful quality to her. But I love Zoe! Oh, Zoe was awesome. And I've loved this actress for a long time. I loved her on Alias as Ana Espinosa before I ever saw Firefly. She's awesome, and she's badass. She's got a rockin' bod, and she kicks ass. She doesn't take shit from nobody. She's an actual physically strong character, and I think that's awesome.
I would have liked more.
And she and Wash are really my all-time favorite odd couple.
I would have liked to know more about her character.
Yeah,
in the show.
I wish they did more than, oh, well, I'm Mal's second hand. Which is a big part of her characteristic.
And given that the show had lasted longer, we would have found out more about her character, as well as every character in the show.
What does that make us? Big damn heroes, sir. But I loved her, too. I loved all the characters except for Simon and River. But I love Kaylee, I love Jane, I love Mal, Inara, Zoe, Wash, and Preacher Man. Biggest disappointment of the show and the movie is I was always kind of just like, what's up with Preacher Man?
Yeah.
And then there was the episode. Then there was the episode he got shot and he showed his ID card, and then it was like, oh, what happened with that? And then there was the last episode, which really is just like, whoa, where River sees into his psyche. And he's, like, cursing and saying, like, all this, like, really creepy, evil shit. And it's just like, dude! What? And then immediately, well, not immediately, but, like, pretty much as soon as he has time on screen in the movie, he gets killed. And we never know. And I know everyone was pissed about Wash getting killed, but I knew that was going to happen. Like, I just knew from watching the movie, not like I knew beforehand. But Shepard... I wanted to see that movie to see what the fuck was going on with Shepard, and people have told me it happens in the comics, and that's why I'm like hell bent on reading the comics someday. But for right now, I'm pissed because that's like the big unanswered for me. It's just like, Preacher Man, what? Yeah. I got to know.
As far as the pacing with the show goes, as far as the pacing goes on the show. Does follow the tropes of early 2000 shows.
It does.
And I do like the fact that we've kind of gotten away from episodic shows, because watching it now, it felt more of a chore, because I'm so used to watching TV where it's like, what's going to happen next episode? What's going to happen next episode? Whereas this was kind of like, oh, well, like, each episode is kind of standalone, and I'm not a fan of that kind of TV. So that is part of my bias against the show, but, you know, it is something that does happen.
And I actually do like the episodic nature for a first season, and that's the thing with a lot of TV shows, too, is the first season, or maybe the first couple seasons, are episodic, and then from there it becomes less and less episodic as the show sort of catches on. And especially Buffy did that as well. So I feel like if it had continued, it wouldn't be like that. But it just kind of had to start out that way for a first episode. And the reason why is because...
X-Files felt more... I mean, even though X-Files is extremely episodic, it felt like it was... I'm biting myself in the foot because I haven't seen X-Files in a long time, so I might be wrong. So I'm going to shut up now.
We got really distracted with a hot picture of Kaylee. Sorry. Yeah. She looks good, though. She's a cutie pie. But the other reason why it needs to be episodic for first season is just because people are just starting to notice it. A word starts to get around. It's like, oh, you should see it next week, blah, blah, blah. And since it really never got that foothold, it did need to be episodic like that, so.
Now, no show should be like that, period. Because we have stuff like Netflix.
Yeah, we have the internet now, so...
Yeah.
But at that point, that was kind of the way you had to go to start with.
So, the show lasted for 14 episodes. Only 12 or 11 of them were actually aired
Yeah, 14 episodes and four of them total were not aired.
So the first episode and the last 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe that's correct. But I know for a fact, actually Trash, which was the really popular one, that's the one with Christina Hendricks, where she comes back. That one was not aired, which is weird because that was picking off of another episode.
Right.
That one was not aired. Heart of Gold was not aired, which is the one where they saved the little whorehouse. And Objects in Space, which is the one where we get into River's character, and the one where Jubal Early comes on the ship.
Wait, is that
was not aired.
Is that the episode where they had the assassin come in?
Yes.
That's a really good episode.
That's seriously one of the best quality-wise in the whole season, and that was not aired.
Yeah, after seeing that episode, I wanted more like bounty hunter characters because I thought that was really cool.
Well, you can.
I thought the character was
and you can definitely see the space western anime inspiration in his character, not just with his bounty hunting, but like if you look at his suit.
Yeah, but I was gonna say it reminded me a lot of Boba Fett's crew, like Bosk or something like that.
Yeah, and I think content wise that's what it was supposed to be, but the wrapping around it was sort of anime visual.
Yeah, I mean a lot of the show borrows visuals from anime. In fact, the pod, River's pod, is almost an exact replica. In that whole concept,
Ghost of the Shell.
No.
Oh.
Outlaw Star.
Yeah, this definitely took a lot of inspiration from Outlaw Star.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure that's fact at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if any of you wanna correct us or wanna confirm that, please comments below.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the Firefly movie.
Serenity.
Yes.
Which is a little confusing because the pilot is also called Serenity.
Yes, but that's the name of the ship.
Yeah. No, of course. I think the show was originally going to be called Serenity. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then I heard.
I'm not sure.
Then I heard somewhere that the sequel show was going to be called Serenity.
Oh, that's just way too confusing. If you have Firefly Serenity and Serenity, that's too confusing.
Yeah,
Too
it
confusing.
is.
But the movie was a lot more polished and did a lot more combining of sci-fi and western than
They
just
also had the
western.
budget, so.
Well, exactly. I think that like I said, that's the major reason why this show was all western, was because you can film a really, bumfuck Egypt places and have it would be a lot cheaper.
And surprisingly, not produced by Fox, produced by Universal Studios.
Yeah, that's surprising. Do you really think that Joss Whedon would make a movie with the same people who tore his show down? I don't think so. But it starts out, and a major issue is we actually went immediately, I think even the same day, went immediately from the last episode of Firefly to Serenity, the movie. And we had, not the same day, but pretty close together.
No, it's like years apart.
No, when we watched it.
Oh, yeah.
When we watched it, we watched most of the Firefly show pretty much together. And then we went directly from the end of the series to the movie.
Yes, and I had seen the movie before.
Right, you had seen the movie before. I'd seen the show in the movie, but we saw it side by side like that, and immediately noticed that they tried to retroactively rewrite Simon and River's story.
Which I was all for.
Yeah, they rewrote it better.
Yeah.
But they did totally rewrite it to where it didn't really make sense with the show.
Yeah, well, they got rid of the whole amygdala thing.
Yeah, immediately with the beginning, when you see her in the lab, you can tell that's not at all what they fucking did.
Probably because, a neuroscientist, wrote
Which
them
is
and was like...
well, actually, that's total bullshit, and here's why.
Well, actually, if you do your research on the stripping of the amygdala, you find out that she would exhibit no emotions. She would be more like a robot, so she wouldn't have those freakouts.
Which they kind of did. But they also made her more like more like the episode in Alias Colorblind, where they had the mind-controlled soldiers, where their memories are kind of wiped clean. So they're really bizarre because they're normal people, but you give them a trigger word, and then they become this empty, emotionless state, and they become cold, calculated killers, and you give them the trigger word, and they revert back, and they have no memory. And that's sort of what they did with River, which I like a lot better than just, I'm gonna slash you in the chest for no reason, even though you're an awesome character and everybody loves you.
I believe they did that concept in the show Dark Angel as well.
Well, it's based on stuff we experimented with, like the American government did experiment with.
Oh, are you
in
talking
reality?
about? Are you talking about? What was that? What was that brain thing it was called?
But I like the fact that they changed it to more of that sort of thing, because that's what I wanted more in the show. And I like the fact that
MK Ultra.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, MK Ultra. I do believe is.
I'm not sure.
It was a psychic.
Oh no! I'm not talking about psychic experiments.
No, these were like fucked up experiments.
Probably.
That they did.
Yeah. Probably, yeah. But I like the fact that her fighting style, she's not just really tiny, but somehow like incredibly strong. All of her moves are more based on grace and accuracy and speed and agility, which fits her a lot better because the actress is a ballerina. She's tiny and she doesn't really have a lot of brute strength to call upon. And if you did see like a tiny baby little River just like, punch a dude in the heart so hard that he died like Bruce Lee, you'd never fucking believe it.
Well, and also fits into the Chinese fighting style,
exactly.
which is something that the show should have had a lot more Chinese. They
should have had a lot more direct Chinese elements to it, but also should have had more Chinese people. I didn't realize Tam, as in Simon and River Tam, I didn't realize that was an Asian name.
Yeah.
I had no idea, but suddenly I would have been like, wow, why didn't you make them Asian? That would have fit very nicely in the cast, But no, they didn't do that. They gave it to. Well, that then
Asian people don't.
Well, then
sell.
It wouldn't be Summer Glau. Well, that's the fucked up thing, is that they're capitalizing on this pop culture movement of being really interested in Chinese and Japanese stuff,
as bad
while
as
not
this would
including
be,
the actual
kind
faces.
of, I'd be okay with like Lucy Liu.
I fucking love Lucy Liu. She's so hot. She's so sexy, damn it.
But if you were gonna have something in that world, like get Lucy Liu or somebody.
But somebody people know.
Yeah, somebody people know. I mean, granted, there are not a lot of good English-speaking Asian roles that we know of.
Oh, Asian roles. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean.
Like, most of the Asian roles that we know of are, people who come overseas, and then they make like martial arts movies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a majority of Asian roles.
Well, here's the sad thing: Gilmore Girls actually had better Asian culture representation than anything Joss Whedon's ever done, and the reason why that's sad is because the two Korean characters on the show are both played by Japanese actors, and also it's Gilmore Girls. They're not really trying to make a show about that sort of culture,
No.
But they actually do it very well and very respectfully, and I do like both of the actors that they picked for that. But that's a slightly different topic. But I'm just saying that it's just
have
strange.
Ben Kingsley. Ben Kingsley could pull it off.
No, for me, it's just a thing of like I hear Ben Kingsley is one of those people where like I like his work just fine. I don't dislike him as an actor, but I've heard so many film students just like jerking off to his name that it just like when I hear Ben Kingsley, I just immediately go ugh. Ugh. Gross. So the movie sort of improved in that regard, and
There was also a better blend with the sci-fi and western that wasn't one or the other, because that was a problem that the show had. It was either sci-fi visually Or it was Western visually, and there was hardly a clash between the two in one scene.
Although they did try to get there more by the end of what we saw.
Yeah.
They were trying to meld it more. We probably would have seen it better by the end of the season, but again, that's what
You're talking about the guy with the land speeder?
Yeah, like
Heart of Gold?
Yeah, in the Heart of Gold episode, they did try to meld that better.
Okay.
They did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so you can kind of see they were going more in that direction.
Yeah, it was probably budgetary reasons.
Yeah, but also, shoot, I think it was Message was the episode with Tracy, their comrade that ships his body to them. It was interesting to see that that area that they're in the beginning of the episode with the post office and like the weird freak show with the cow fetus. So you see sort of you know what I'm talking about now. And fucking River has this like ball of ice cream on a stick, and she's trying to eat it, and then she stops. She's like, "My food's problematic." Like she's 2. Like she talks like that's what a 3-year-old does. They try to do something when they can't do it. They're like, "It doesn't work." And she says like, "My food's problematic, you guys. It's really hard." But they did sort of have like a Western setup to the area where it was more like a town market, but they had people wearing more sci-fi accessories, and there were more sci-fi and features incorporated into the set a little bit more, which
showed some Cowboy Bebop influence.
Well, really, I thought Early Jones's Jubal Early's suits looked like so Cowboy Bebop. His like red suit. Yeah. But going back to the movie, you do see the progression with Malin and Nara's relationship to a certain extent, and that's good. And there were some in-jokes that weren't so insider that if you had never seen the show before, you couldn't get.
No.
But
the humor and the pacing worked a lot better. Because
the editing was a lot better. It was a lot more fitted to both the Joss Whedon speed of humor and to the visuals. So yeah, it did come across a lot better in that.
And also you had Chiwetel Ejiofor, who was awesome in the movie.
Yes, he was. He was fucking awesome. He was so cool.
I loved how he was like a man of few words, and he always like said something like poetic.
He was a lot like Jubal Early though.
No, he was like a more controlled version of Jubal Early. There was
influence of that, but he was way better, way cooler guy. Definitely dug him a lot more.
And if the show continued, I would have liked to see more characters like that.
And there probably would have been. I mean, Serenity is the answer to the what if, of Firefly. Which is a good thing, and it comes across very well. Of course, everyone's bitches, "Oh, Wash died, that sucks." And I knew going into the movie they were going to kill Wash. I knew it was going to happen. Nobody even told me. I knew before I saw it, they're going to kill Wash. You're going to kill the sympathetic fan favorite just so you can sort of end the franchise.
I'm confused because in the comics, both Wash and Preacher Man are dead.
I think it's because it's not after Serenity.
Okay.
The comics, as far as I know, and from what I read of the comics at conventions, it's not after Serenity. I think it might be pre-Firefly, but I'm not sure. It might take place in between. But I know that it's not post-Serenity, I think. I think that I know.
It might be both.
Yeah, I mean, different comic episodes can go in different directions.
Yeah.
But they wrote River's story a lot better. They advanced some of the story. I got pissed that they killed off Preacher Man, and you don't know what the fuck his deal was, because he was the freak of the bunch.
Apparently Preacher Man is in a
Don't
new
tell
show.
me!
He's in a new show.
You mean Ron Glass?
Ron Glass is in a new show.
Yes. Which, by the way...
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, that makes sense, actually, because Joss Whedon does Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Makes sense. By the way, I'm like 92.8% certain, like really that fucking sure that I served Ron Glass 2 cherry limeades when I worked at Sonic. I'm pretty freaking sure, because I go to the car to take their order, and he looks just like him, and he was there with his wife, or possibly, I think it was his wife. They looked very married. But I saw him, and I was like, oh my god! And I go inside, and I'm just like, calm down, what are you going to say, what are you going to do? And I go back out, I was like, by the way...
Girl.
Well, I didn't squeal on the spot, I was trying to be cool. And I come back, I hand him the cherry limeades, and I ask him, have you ever seen Firefly? And he laughs, like, ha ha ha. Yeah, I've seen some Firefly, like, trying to be very cool. I've seen some Firefly, sure. And I was like, really? Because you look just like Preacher Man. And he's just like, ha 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 ha. And he doesn't say anything else, but just like has this knowing laugh, and he and his wife just look at each other like it's some sort of in-joke, and I'm like, oh my god!
I apologize for your ears.
I'm like so fucking certain that it happened based on his reaction. Like it looked just like him too. I like Ron Glass, okay? And Preacher Man was fucking awesome. And they killed him, and you don't know.
Fangirl.
I love Preacher Man though. It's just like, he's awesome. Too much hair. Love it. Love it. That was like the best River time, except for the last episode within the show. Was that one part of the episode where Preacher Man's sort of watching after her, and they start talking about religion and the Bible, and she sees him with his hair undid and freaks out. That was the best River time on the show. And it's because Preacher Man just made it awesome.
Einstein reference.
Well, of course. But he's awesome. I love Preacher Man. So.
Going back to the movie, so the guy that Chiwetel Ejiofor plays.
Totally don't even remember his name because I just think of Chiwetel Ejiofor. I see that Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah.
Because he's just like, oh, you're so cool. You're such a cool guy.
I remember the fight very distinctly.
How can you forget that? It's just like, boom.
Well, I love what Mal does in the fight. Like how he like puts the sword between the bars.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of left there.
Yeah. All of the scenes that Chiwetel was in were action scenes were like, bam, imprinted in my brain.
But like River's action scenes were like awesome too.
They were because it was the right fighting style for her.
Right, and yeah, unfortunately I saw the movie first, so when I saw River in the show, it was just
You're
like...
just like, what the fuck? When did she become cool?
When does she kick ass?
Yeah.
Like...
She doesn't.
Yeah.
And a nice little cameo from Sarah Paulson in the movie Firefly. She played the hologram, who does the "Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope."
Yeah, there were a lot of Star Wars references.
Including...
a little too obvious.
Including the writing of katakana on the Firefly set, which doesn't make sense because they did not have that in the TV show, but also there are not nearly as many Japanese influences on the show as Chinese, but they had katakana writings on the wall, like in the kitchen and in other places. But there was you see it in the doorway of the kitchen, and you're just like, wait a minute, that wasn't there before. What the fuck?
Well, it's
you
been
guys are full of shit.
A couple of years. Yeah.
It's been a couple of years. That's true. There was a time skip. You don't know if they decided to spruce up the ship a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, Kaylee is like, well, I got all the engines done and all this kind of stuff. And...
I want to paint pretty things in the kitchen now. I love Kaylee.
So, yeah, overall, Firefly and Serenity were a decent experience. I know that you have a special place with it in your heart. I've seen too many iterations that I think are better. You know, it's something that I don't have the nostalgia for it, so I think my opinion of it is kind of hindered by the fact that I've seen better iterations of things influenced by it.
Yeah, and I'm a huge, huge, huge fan, and I know all of the issues with it. That's part of being a fan, is you can't just blindly be like, everything about it is perfect, you know? Right. If you really know something well, you know what's wrong with it, and you know what's right with it. And there are problems, for sure. But I do think it is one of those staples in culture, and considering how short it is, it's not unfair to be one of those, you have to see it just so you've seen it and you understand pieces. Like Battlestar Galactica, as fantastic as I know it is, it's fucking long. And it's worth it. Totally. but it's fucking long for something that addictive. Like, really?
Yeah.
It's 4 seasons, right?
4
4 seasons, 2 movies, and a 3-hour pilot.
Yes.
That's intense, dude. That's fucking intense. Just saying.
And it's like crack cocaine.
Yeah. But the other Joss Whedon thing that's like that, the other 2 really are Buffy and Avengers. Which Avengers, when it first came out, everybody was just like goo goo gaga over. But now it's more divisive, but that's a more polarizing movie now. Where people either fucking love it or they fucking hate it.
To me, like, when I saw the Avengers movie, I just was like, everybody's losing their shit over this movie, and you have a boring-ass car chase scene, which, you know, if you're gonna have a car chase scene with superhero movies, you know, at least borrow elements from The Matrix Reloaded, because say what you will about the movie, that was an awesome car chase scene.
Okay.
That involved, like, superpowers and stuff like that. You know, it had,
like,
the ghosts, it had,
well,
the
that's
agents
why
and
people
all
watch
this stuff.
fucking shitty movies, is because the action is good. Even if the movie's shit, because that's still interesting.
But the Avengers didn't really have that awesome action.
Well, I wasn't talking about the Avengers, I was talking about more, like,
yeah.
you know, shitty action movies.
Yeah, there's, like, one... For like, a superhero movie, it has one action set piece.
Right.
Or like, 2 if you include the ship thing.
Well, the action set piece is the one that's really, really, really shown a lot, where it starts out with the 360 shot spanning around them all in a circle, looking outwards at the mass of nameless, faceless, boring, identifiable
but that's the big
aliens.
action set piece that I'm talking about.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, superhero movie.
Well, there are better superhero movies than the Avengers, and the funny thing is Guardians of the Galaxy is more of a Joss Whedon superhero movie than Joss Whedon's superhero movie was.
Yeah, that movie totally felt like something Joss Whedon did.
Except for much better than the one he actually did,
yeah.
and much funnier. Which Joss Whedon's bag is humor.
Yeah, so
he does drama
the
really
best
well
Joss
as well.
Whedon movie that we've gotten so far.
That's not true.
Nope.
You love Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods is fantastic.
I do have to say that I came into the Avengers loving the Cabin in the Woods, and I saw the Avengers and I was like, eh, and then I was like, oh well, I should watch Firefly. And
well, I did think that it was about time that Joss Whedon did a comic book movie. Being a director and a comic book writer together, you might as well do a comic book movie.
Yeah, hopefully pick something a little less mainstream.
Well, he's doing like the next 3 Avengers, and I think he's done after that. The next 3, the 2 and 3.
I just would like him to tackle something that's a little less...
Oh, he did! Much Ado About Nothing. It fucking sucked. I hated that movie, and I was excited to see it. I've been reading Shakespeare since I was 6. I love Shakespeare, or at least I did. I'm more critical of it now.
Isn't it like half the cast of Firefly, too?
It's not. It's all of Whedon's favorites together. And Simon plays a bad guy, and it's really fucking weird, because you totally don't buy it. Like, he has a sex scene, and you're like, sure, you gotta let that happen. No, it's not that he's not handsome, it's that he can't pull it off very well. Okay. He's too nice guy. It doesn't work. But Fred from Angel, which is the only good part of Angel, is Fred. Only good thing in Angel, because Angel fucking sucked. Like, for me, what I liked about Angel was it was all the characters I hated in Buffy got together, got their own show, and went somewhere else where I didn't have to fucking deal with them. And then, of course, it spawned fucking Twilight, so fuck Angel. No, Twilight was spawned by a bunch of things, but it included Angel. I know. But Much Ado About Nothing fucking sucked. It was boring and it was stupid and there was no reason to have it in modern days except for the fact that the sets were cheap and the black and white thing was really stupid. Urgh. I didn't like it. And most people watch movies or plays of Shakespeare rather than read it because it's easier to comprehend. Which makes sense. That's the intended way to to take it in. But I was watching it with my mom and Kai, and they were entirely lost. They were so lost. They had no idea. They're not stupid people. They're familiar with Shakespeare. They can follow along. It just wasn't clear enough in the movie. If that makes sense.
Well, maybe he needs to take some lessons.
Yeah. It was fucking stupid. But then Buffy was fantastic and only got better and better and better. And Dr. Horrible's sing-along vlog was very funny.
Wait, that was Joss Whedon?
Yes!
That's awesome.
How did you not know? Dude, it was Nathan Fillion and Felicia Day in a nerdy superhero musical. Who the fuck did you think made something like that?
I don't know.
I'm not. Oh my god.
I'm not incredibly familiar with like Felicia Day's body of work. I know her more as a person.
But dude, his voice. He was one of the cowboys. Not his. They didn't use his face, but he and his two brothers did all the vocals for the cowboys, and they hired other actors except for Jed Whedon. He was still in it, but I think they thought 3 redheaded cowboys was too much. But he created it, he wrote it, he got it sponsored, he put it on the internet because that was the intended medium, was to put it on the internet, which is how it was originally distributed before it was ever on DVD or Netflix or whatever.
So was it in like shorter form too?
No, it was just in the 3 acts, so you have like 3 half-hour videos.
Okay.
That's why it's in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
And then he made a comic to it, and then they might
make
a movie to it.
I hope they don't make another movie to it. Fuck that. No. I don't want. But
I don't know. Neil Patrick Harris should stick to what he knows.
He was good in that movie.
Singing. He was
good in that movie.
And
he wasn't unbearable, actually.
Yeah.
He was actually really entertaining.
Yeah, and
he is entertaining in his niche.
Yeah.
Like in his typecast, he's very entertaining, but when he tries to be more edgy, it just becomes unbearable. But yeah, they did all the audio recording in his loft. It cost him like $1,500-ish to make the whole thing. He did it for super cheap. It was like his little side project that worked out really well. We applied the cortical electrodes, but were unable to get a neurological response. That's how big a Firefly fan I am. That's how I always prove it.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, and until next time.